Good morning. Happy Sunday. I hope you had a great week. I hope you have a really good weekend. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of your time. On Sundays, I review a book every week. Now, this week, I'm on the road and I'm a little bit under the weather and I'm having a couple of technology challenges, but I'm still excited to share this book with you because today I'm going to share The Psychology of Money, and it's by Morgan Housel. And it is a fantastic book. And Morgan, who has been a writer for the Motley Fool and the Wall Street Journal, he really is known for making complex financial concepts simple. Now, this book, which was published in 2020, has sold 7 million copies. That's a lot of books, everybody. So this is a really, really, popular book. And it's really, a must read for anyone who wants to understand the non-technical side of wealth building. Because what Housel does is what Housel does is he explores the human behavior rather than raw financial knowledge. Because he believes that human behavior is actually the determinant of financial success. And it's very interesting. And as you know, I'm a big believer that we have to be more. We have to be great advisors. We got to be, financial advisors to our clients. I'm a huge fan of First Home IQ with financial literacy. Well, as we elevate our game, it's not so much teaching people about interest rates. It's more about teaching them about the psychology of investing, the psychology of wealth. And this book talks about, now this book, I listened to on Audible. It was about 4 hours, 20 minutes, I think. And it was a great book to listen on Audible. Some books aren't so good to listen to. Some are better to read. This is a great one to listen to because it's really 20 chapters about stories, about people who built wealth or people who lost wealth, people that did the right thing and people that did the wrong thing. And it also has a ton of studies and data. It's great. It was a really enjoyable book to read. So let's get after it. I'm going to go through some of the key things for the book, some of the overall points, and then I'm going to go just describe some things. It's behavior over knowledge. Luck and risk play a bigger factor than strategy. Compounding is the critical, key to success. Wealth is what you don't see. I love that. We're going to talk about that. And then empathy and finance. I'm in a public square, by the way, so tons of people are walking around. I apologize about that. So here's the first insight. We all think we know what we know, and what we know is only an infinitesimal fraction of human knowledge. Yet what we know that we know, represents how we decide. And so we have to stay very open-minded, and we have to accept that we may not know. And so that's the first thing. Approach with a bit of humility and accept that you're going to have failure because you just don't know what you don't know. And then the second thing is we talked about luck and risk are often the factors that determine success and failure. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how the book works. In this chapter, what the author talked about, he used Bill Gates. And so he said, hey, look, Bill Gates went to one of the only high schools at the time that had a computer. And there was a 1 in a million chance he would be in a high school that had a computer. But he went to that one. And because he had access to a computer, by the way, which most college people didn't have access to, he was able to gain his knowledge and his experience. And Bill Gates says, if I didn't go to that high school, there would be no Microsoft. So that's an example of how luck and risk could be bigger factors than strategy and knowledge. Really interesting. And I love this one here. There is never a reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. And he used Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff had created a trading function where he just had arbitrage in every single trade, and he was making hundreds of millions of dollars. And then he got ridiculously greedy, and of course he created the largest Ponzi scheme in history, right? And so he risked everything he had for what he didn't need. He's already a millionaire, like hundreds of millions of dollars. Why risk all that to try to be in the billionaires club? But that's what he did, and so that's what this chapter is all about. And you can see once again how the authors, bring in examples, and they're really interesting to listen to. The author goes on to say the key to good investing is not to earn the highest return; it's to earn pretty good returns consistently. And he's going to bring this up repeatedly, that it's about compound interest. And he talks about it, and we'll talk about a little bit, how Warren Buffett, people think Warren Buffett's the greatest investor of all time. He's not necessarily the greatest investor of all time. He's the greatest investor to be in the market for 75 years. And by the way, he made the majority, 99.9% of his wealth after the age 65, because he just had compounding. And then he uses an example, who is the greatest investor, the guy that has the longest return over decades, a guy that had 66% returns, annual returns for 30 years. Interesting. So the next one is getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two different skills. Getting wealthy requires risk and being optimistic. Staying wealthy requires caution and paranoia. How true is that? So we're building the wealth, we have to have one set, and then when we're preserving the wealth, we have to have another mindset. Going on, most investments either fail or break even. The vast majority of your success is determined by a small number of big winners called tail events. And so what he says, like in the, whatever, in the S&P 500 or the Russell 3000, 70% of the stocks lose money. They drop in value. And then, 20% stay kind of even. And then 5% that's where you get your gain. And so don't freak out with your failures. Just know it's a collage of your investments, and don't get emotional about it, right? And so he says here, don't panic in a crisis and sell prematurely. Be a consistent investor and take advantage of a wide range of investments. Next, this is really good stuff, right? If the goal is happiness, then a person should structure their wealth to maximize their control over their own time. And this is where he says, wealth is having control of being able to do what you want to do for how long you want to do it with the people you want to do it with. And really, really good, right? And then here's interesting. Wealth is the money not spent. Right? That's what wealth is, money not spent. But to accumulate wealth, people must accept that being wealthy and looking wealthy are different things. In this chapter, he talks about Rihanna, who went bankrupt in 2009. She was just a massive consumption, just spending. And she went bankrupt and she sued her financial advisor. And in his defense in court, he goes, do I really have to tell people that if you spend all your money on consumption that you're not going to have any money? Is that really my fault? So it's an interesting chapter. Next, building wealth is less about income or investment returns and more about their savings rate. So you understand that? Building wealth, it isn't about what your return is in your investments. Are you getting 5, 6, 7, 20%? It's about how much are you saving every year, every day, every week. That's the key to success. And this is great stuff for us to incorporate in our advice. If we have an advisory process with our clients, which concepts can you take from this book and make them your core concepts to try to teach? Like, hey, I want to just share 5 fundamental understandings on how to create wealth. Here's what they are, and that's part of my value add to my clients, right? And then, in 10, it's more important to have flexibility than to have a really thought out plan, because everything changes all the time. And so you can't be totally rigid. Now, if being reasonable is easier to maintain than being coldly rational, that should be done, because anything that helps an investor stay in the game long enough for benefit from tail events will have a quantifiable advantage. What this means is if you can't white knuckle it to not do the wrong thing, right, then just, be reasonable, right? Versus just coldly irrational. It's hard to be coldly irrational, right? And so you just got to be, you got to educate yourself. So what's the reasonable thing to do? We know that our investments over time will compound. The reasonable thing is not touch them. One. And then next thought is, one good way to stay in the game long enough to benefit from tail events is for investors to have an emotional connection to their investments. This is really important. This is really interesting. It's like he says, look, we have some investors that pride themselves on a lack of emotion. Those are the people that jump in and out of the market. And so ones that are emotionally attached, like, I love my retirement, I love my savings, that they actually have the stick-to-itness to stick through the market is counterintuitive. History is a poor guide to investment because it tricks investors to think the future will be like the past. Things that have never happened before happen all the time. And this is part of that failure. You got to accept failure. You can't beat yourself up. You're going to have good years, bad years, good investments, bad investments. No big deal. And so this is the same with nobody can know everything that is going to happen. So they have to invest safely enough to experience tail events, right? You got to be, have a good enough spread of investments. You just got to let them sit over time. You cannot emotionally bounce all over the place. A long-term financial plan should have the potential for change built into them. And it's like this, only 27% of college graduates actually practice in the field they went to school in. Same with your investments. You start your investments and they're going to change over time. Just stay in the game. Here's an interesting thing. Most investors who try to game the system see come back to bite them. And Morningstar did this study, and they studied 112 tactical mutual funds versus just market funds. And those tactical funds, ones that tried to time the market, were volatile and performed much less, very poorly. Don't do it. Just don't try to play the market. Bubbles, and it talks about bubbles. Bubbles are when the momentum of short-term returns attracts enough money that the makeup investors shifts from mostly long-term to primarily short-term versus definitely people that, bubble is when people just are fanatical about short-term investing and don't get sucked into short-term investing. In this case, it might be NVIDIA, right? Oh my God, the last 3 years it's up 3,000%. I got to go all in on it. Stick with your plan. Stick with your plan. Stick with your plan. And so, okay, I'll just a couple more on, all right, so this is I'll wrap this up because I know we're going long. This is a terrific book. Read it, like extract like 5 things. Like, hey, this is my I have a financial literacy strategy, and I have a wealth building strategy. And here's my 5 critical things for wealth building: is first, mindset and psychology. Now, a financial planner can actually help you make what investments you need to make or select your actual allocations on those things. But as their Sherpa to wealth through real estate and just wealth in general, should be able to master a few of these things. So I really love this book. I appreciate your guys' patience. I had all sorts of people walking in and out, so I apologize about that. Once again, the book was The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I appreciate you guys joining me. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you again soon.